Eddie Inzauto, GamerNode.com. We're here at PAX East 2013. I'm at the Klei booth with Rollins, community manager. How you doing, sir?
Good. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. I just played some Don't Starve. You were there.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about it a little bit.
Yes.
So, first of all, what type of game is Don't Starve?
Sure. So it's a wilderness survival game full of science and magic, and I kind of like to add that it's a systems exploration game where it's really about you getting dropped off in an unknown world with unknown rules and things going on, and it's really up to you and the player to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what's beneficial, what's not beneficial, and how can you exploit the things in the world and the world itself.
Awesome. So Klei has made a name for yourselves with Shank and Mark of the Ninja, but this is the first time you're self-publishing. What's the difference been with that, and has it been easy to work with that platform, or just everything about it?
So this is indeed our first self-published game, and I mean, there's pros and cons, obviously, to publishing versus self-publishing. If you're publishing, you have help with distribution, and you have money up front to develop the game. You also, on the flip side, have rules and deliverables and things like that. And we've been fortunate and had great publishing deals in the past, but we really wanted to do something that was completely up to us. We don't have to ask anybody at any time. Any decision we make happens. So it allows us to act a lot faster and based completely on things that matter to us and our direct community. So, it just allows us to be a lot more responsive, and so far it's been awesome. This was a very experimental title for us in terms of how we developed a game. Things have been very traditional in the past where we would develop a game and maybe have some testers come in and try things once in a while and we get some feedback, but this has been very transparent. We put out a playable but very unfinished build months ago, like 6, 7, 8 months ago. We started getting people into the build, and ever since then we've been pushing out updates every 2 weeks, really taking the feedback from the community and just watching people play the game and observing them and making those changes and improvements, and it's been a really rewarding experience that's actually impacted our other games. So when we shipped Mark of the Ninja, which was developed very traditionally, we built the game and released it. With the DLC that we just released, we knew we wanted to do some translation for the developer commentary that's in the game. If you go through the DLC, there's these little nodes that pop up that give you like hints if you turn them on about how we built this and why we did what we did and history about Japanese ninja stuff that we researched. And we wanted that in different languages, and to do that it costs a lot of time and money, and we decided that we wanted to do it. So we actually reached out to the community in a very similar way that we've been doing for Don't Starve, and got an awesome reception back, and we got actual players from those native tongues who are bilingual to help us translate that game. And so just the whole mindset of thinking has really opened up and changed. We're really open-minded to working with the community in a lot of different ways now. So those translators will be credited in the game. We'll give them a nod and stuff, and that would have probably not happened without Don't Starve's influence.
Very cool. So being that you're developing sort of transparently in front of your community, what sort of feedback have you been getting? Are people wary of the permadeath? Do they ask for more lives, or what kind of things do they probe for, in future updates?
So part of developing really transparency, like for example, the difficulty. Difficulties, obviously, any game, there's going to be mixed feelings about it. And with Don't Starve, that's one of the balances that we look at is difficulty, because we have basically two camps of people who comment on that, of like, the game's too hard, I want it to be easier. And we have other people who have made mods that make the game so hard that even like we're just like, damn, that's hard. That is hard. I think it's hardcore. Yeah. And like we wouldn't unleash that upon a regular consumer, but it's like, we open the game up for modding to let people kind of take the game and make it their own, or find a mod if you don't have the ability to change it yourself. There's a huge amount of mods on our forum that manipulate the game to things that we're not going to do in our vision of the game. You're more than welcome to change your game and try to make it your way, or develop it your way. And it's really been awesome trying to get that feedback and find those balancing points, not just on difficulty, but on a lot of different things. One really big common pushback that we got was about multiplayer. Everyone's like, why isn't this game multiplayer? Biggest reason, like, we thought about that long before we released it to the public, and we thought about it hard. I mean, there's some cool stuff you could do if it was multiplayer, but we decided really early on that This is a single-player game about being lost, lonely, by yourself, and you're surviving. You don't know why you're there, and you don't have a friend for help. You're totally lost and alone in this world. And multiplayer doesn't really fit with what we're trying to do with that game at this point, so it's not on our roadmap. And we committed to making a really kick-ass single-player game, and that's what we're going to do. So we've conveyed that to the community, and the response back was very understanding, and that kind of stuff is really awesome.
So going back, I mean, obviously with the community questioning, you know, which way you're taking the game, you mentioned it's a systems exploration game. So does that mean that you're trying to make it as open as possible for the player to explore different ways to play the game? Is that like really a big focus?
I would say that that's actually one of the cores of Don't Starve is we will never tell you how to play, and the game will never tell you how to play. The game will present you with things that will interest people differently to make their own quests. Right. So sometimes people pop up and they want to just explore the whole map. First thing, I'm in an unknown world, I want to know what's out there, right. I'm going to explore. Other people see that totally differently and might say, I have no idea what's out there. It could be scary shit. I don't want to go there. I'm going to build a base and hunker down.
Right.
And that's like a really broad scope kind of decision, but there's all these little micro decisions across the game about, you know, encountering different creatures, items, just things in the environment that will encourage the player to make their own goals based on how they approach that situation of surviving. And, you know, some people might want to try and explore the reasons as to why are they there in the first place, and, you know, what is this place?
Yeah, you kind of described exactly how I felt when I got on there. I was like, oh, let me explore around. I want to see what's around me. And then because there was no tutorial, I didn't know exactly what I was supposed to do until I discovered the toolbar on the side and building and crafting. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I had my own goals to go, oh, now I need to get this many of this thing and this many of this thing, and I'll build my pickaxe, and then I could work on. And I like how that opens up. And of course, building off of all this exploration and different paths that players can take, I noticed for the first time that there are multiple characters to be played here. In all the media that I've seen, I've only seen the cool dude with the spiky hair. Yeah. But now we have Pyro Girl and I don't know how many others.
So basically characters are unlocked. The main character you're talking about with the spiky hair, the gentleman scientist Wilson, he is the main character, and he's the person you start with. As you progress through the game, depending on how far you progressed and things you achieved before you die, there are also other ways to cash out the experience, but you get experience based on what you achieved. And those experience points go towards unlocking different characters that have different skill sets and different things, like the Pyro Girl, Willow. She can build fires super easy. She just lights things on fire, and so it's really easy for you to make fire. Obviously on the flip side, you might accidentally burn the forest down, and that would be terrible.
I accidentally did that.
Yeah, so it's like there's all these different characters with all their different traits, and we're actually working right now. There will be more characters. I think right now we have 6 unlockable characters currently. There will be more down the road, but yeah, we're focusing on the single player story portion right now, but we'll get back into releasing more characters later. We're also working on making sure the characters are really significantly unique, because that's another way where just by changing an ability or an attribute, adding a weakness or a strength, it inherently changes your play style of the game to either benefit or challenge you depending on what you're after, right? But yeah, new characters and stuff are definitely a big part of Don't Starve, and we'll keep rolling them out.
Very cool. Another thing is, you were just mentioning the story, the adventure mode. So there's survival and there's adventure. And well, what's the balance between those two things, and where do you find yourselves putting most of your energy, and why is it developed that way?
Sure. So early on, it was very straight just survival. It was an open survival game where it was really just how long can you survive and not die. Now we're coming closer to our development, launch, because we're in beta right now, and you can get in the beta, but we're coming up on April 23rd is going to be what we consider our launch release. And once we hit that point, it's going to be there's going to be a story aspect in the game. So right now we've kind of switched. We have all the elements of the world and the creatures and things, Now it's how can we actually build the story and the progression through the game. If you choose to embark on it, we're adding that part now. So our development over the next little while is going to be about rolling out that progression. Ever since we did an update actually called Progression, which introduced a way to proceed through the storyline, that's kind of been our big focus at this point in the development.
Right. So something that you may not notice when you first look at Don't Starve, but becomes very apparent when you sit down and play it, is there are similarities between your game and a very popular game, Minecraft, in terms of, you know, gathering resources. Was that an influence on you building Don't Starve?
Oh, well, I mean, a lot of developers and people in the office, I mean, absolutely have played Minecraft and stuff like that. Along with Minecraft and some other games, we just really didn't feel like there was a very focused survival game. Right. And that's what we really wanted to make, was it's not about terraforming and, you know, mass collecting or building architecture and stuff. It's about not dying and survival in the woods. And then we added the science and magic as our kind of flair. But yeah, we really wanted to make survival mode in Minecraft is awesome and it's fun, but you kind of like hit this wall of, okay, I've survived. And most people just want to use it as virtual Lego and stuff. And so we tried to take our favorite parts of that and other survival games and just go straight survival wilderness game, you know, without the necessarily horror part, because most people associate survival with survival horror and things, and, you know, it's not Slender Man and stuff. Like it's our, you know, more approachable version of survival game.
I mean, though it can be scary, like when the lights go out at night and you don't have something to build a fire with.
We tried to make it like a really cute and adorable thing that has these like creeping tones of, you know, strange and weird and dark, creepy stuff. Right. These like dark undertones. A lot of people, obviously, not just with the art style, but, you know, the mood of the game, or think Tim Burton, who absolutely was an influence, but also goes back to like just German Impressionism and the weird, dark, gritty, very gothic sketch kind of look. And
a little creepy.
Yeah, it's like creepy cartoony. That's really the style. It's creepy cartoony. If you showed it to a child, it's not going to traumatize them, but almost as an older person, you can look at that and actually pull out more creepiness than it really is.
Yes. So, being a survival game, obviously, when a person's out in the woods, there are certain things that logic dictates that you can do and things that'll help you. How has the realism of, you know, our real world been infused into a game that also features like the dark magic and all that?
So we do kind of blend science and magic and, you know, logic of things that you can do and combine in the game that you would do in real life that just makes sense. And then we kind of add in the magic to fill in the gaps or do things that would otherwise be impossible. I mean, there's weird, crazy, dark, magic-y kind of things that you can do that, you know, have this element of, well, if I could assemble these weird magical items logically, I could do something. Right. And so through the recipe guides and the things that you learn to build and unlock, it does start getting more fantastical as you go into the game. It kind of starts off very, I am surviving in the wilderness, and it starts becoming more grander and crazier and darker and mystical as you go along.
So is the magic really tied into the story of why you're there?
I mean, it's not in the very intro of our demo, but we recently released, you know, a cinematic that explains the origin story of Wilson. And yeah, you can see he's a failing scientist who's trying to work in his lab and failing, blowing stuff up in his beakers, and he kind of is giving up. And he kind of gets approached by this ominous, mysterious voice over the radio who basically asks him if he wants to be bestowed with all of the knowledge of science, basically, which he accepts, and it kind of is a double-edged sword that ends up entrapping him in this weird world, and that's where the game starts, and you don't know who that was, why you're there, why did this happen to you, and now you're in this world with your knowledge of science and now these new rules of magic that really open up the game.
Very cool. Now, I actually have a question coming from one of our colleagues who's been playing the game throughout the beta. Dan Crabtree wants to know, why pigs?
Honestly, the pigs. So the game was actually originally made for a game jam. Our office does game jams where we take 48 hours and challenge ourselves in different teams to make as many playable games as possible. Sometimes there's rules, sometimes it's just an open game jam. Kevin Forbes, actually one of the designers on this, it's kind of his brainchild, and I believe it was penned by Jeff Agala. They teamed up to make this game, and this was their game jam game. It was in a very weird infantile state, but basically it was an island simulator. You were stuck, you're a castaway, and you're stuck on the island, and you had to survive. And if you managed to survive in their game long enough, there were these weird tribal pigmen, and honestly, it just kind of carried over into the game.
Okay. Yeah, because according to Dan, I haven't been playing the game like he has. He said the pigs are the only ones who are not immediately aggressive or food. So it seems like allies, and there might be more to that.
There's a couple. The pigs will definitely fight you if you anger them. Everything in that game, you can probably find a creative way to make it kill you.
Okay.
But there are docile creatures, at least creatures that start off docile, and of course there's also creatures that start very aggro and you want to stay away from or be prepared to combat them. Spiders are not your friends.
So yeah, that's about it. We just want to know, do you have a release date planned?
So right now the launch date, which will basically be a continued development of what we do. So every 2 weeks we push out a new build. One of the builds coming up on April 23rd will be considered our release build.
Okay.
And we've actually committed to 6 months of continued development no matter what after release. And if it makes sense to keep developing it economically, we'll keep developing the game because we really like working on this and we want to keep expanding it as long as we can as a studio.
Absolutely. And what's it going to cost everyone at home, and where are they going to play it?
So right now, during our early access beta, you can get the game for $12.99, and we give you or $11.99, and we give you an extra copy. So for $12, you can get the game and you get an extra copy to give to a friend. Also, if you redeem the Steam key before April 23rd, we have a thing with Team Fortress 2, and you get Team Fortress 2 Wilson hair, and you also get a ham bat, so you can literally beat people with giant stick of ham. Okay. And once the game comes out, we're estimating that it'll be $15 for one copy once the full version's out. So you can get it right now and get 2 copies for.
And it's just on Steam.
For $12. It's on Steam for PC. It will come out for Steam Mac. And if you're on a Mac and you want to play it right now, you can go to the Google App Store. And you can get it from the Google App Store, play it right in your Chrome browser. It's identical game. It's not graphically different or content different in any way. And you will get the Steam keys if you buy the Google version. Okay. It's the same price. You'll get the Steam keys, so you can give them away to a friend, or you can hold on to it until the Mac version comes out on Steam, and you'll get it there too.
Very cool, very cool. That's Don't Starve. Klei Entertainment, Corey Rollins, thank you very much. It was great talking to you.